There are many countries with surprising realities, but surely you will be surprised to know that in the smallest and most forgotten country in South America, there are extraordinary realities, such as containing villages where the white man is forbidden access and could face dangers that could put his life at risk, or real events such as those reflected in the popular series Narco Saints, in which a Korean community and religious leader formed a kind of cartel with the collaboration of some of his parishioners, which almost ended up turning this small country into a real narco state. In this new video of Uncensored World, we are going to know in more detail Suriname, a country that, although it is one of the most unknown and unpopulated, is also one of the most extraordinary and enigmatic on the planet. This country is home to unique curiosities, such as being one of the most ethnically diverse countries in the world, with a beauty reflected in its men and women, considered among the most beautiful in the world, or a present very connected to the past of slavery, which makes the most important party in the country is the Keti Koti, a festival that translates as the chains are broken, symbolizing that a few decades ago they got freedom, or the many colorful carnivals as explosive and sensual as those of the river, making this small country one of the hottest and most vibrant spots in South America. A territory as beautiful as it is wild, where more than 90% of its surface is covered by dense tropical rainforests, making Suriname one of the most jungle-like countries in the world. A region where it is believed that even today, there are tribes and islands that have not been contacted, an immense jungle that seems to keep secrets as coveted as the mythical city of El Dorado. Pay attention and don't miss this video, because we assure you that this trip to Suriname will surprise you. Let's get started. Suriname is an enigmatic country located in the northern part of South America, bordering Brazil to the south and French Guiana to the east. It is the smallest and least populated country in South America, an unknown place with surprising curiosities, with an area of over 163,000 square kilometers, of which more than 90% is made up of thick jungle, and a population that barely exceeds 600,000 inhabitants. This makes its population density is very low, with only 3 inhabitants per square kilometer. In Suriname, the official language is Dutch, which may be surprising, since many people with indigenous features typical of this region of the planet use a European language to communicate in the official sphere. In addition, a good part of the population also speaks English, which facilitates connection and communication with tourists visiting the country. This linguistic mix reflects the rich cultural heritage of Suriname, where diverse indigenous, African, and European influences coexist. The use of Dutch and English not only highlights Suriname's colonial history, but also creates a welcoming environment for visitors seeking to explore its natural and cultural wonders. The name Suriname comes from the Suriname River, which in turn was named after the Surine tribe, a Taino group that inhabited the region before the arrival of European settlers. The history of this country is rich and complex, marked by colonialism, slavery, and the arrival of various ethnic groups. During its colonial past, Suriname was an important center of sugar plantations, where millions of Africans were brought as slaves. Suriname was colonized by the Dutch in the 17th century, becoming an important sugar, coffee, and cocoa growing colony. In 1667, the Dutch West India Company took control of the region, using large numbers of African and, to a lesser extent, indigenous slave labor to maximize production on the plantations. The exploitation of these slaves and the brutality of plantation life deeply marked the history of the country. Dutch colonization lasted for more than 3 centuries, until Suriname gained its independence on November 25, 1975. The struggle for independence was marked by social and political tensions, partly inherited from the legacy of colonialism. After the abolition of slavery in 1863, workers from India began to arrive to replace slave labor. This resistance to oppression gave rise to the Maroons, communities formed by escaped slaves who managed to settle in the interior of the country, where they developed their own culture and traditions. One of the most surprising curiosities of Suriname is the existence of communities that are strictly forbidden to the white man. In places like the village of Dome, access to foreigners, especially whites, is forbidden. This prohibition is based on the history of oppression and mistreatment suffered by Africans during the colonial era. The inhabitants of these communities believe that the presence of white people can bring bad luck and even disease, a reflection of the historical memory of the violence suffered by their ancestors, or how contact with foreign cultures and uncontacted societies brought with it diseases, often fatal, that decimated their population. This belief has led many communities to establish limits on the entry of outsiders, thus protecting their culture and way of life. It is important to emphasize that more than 90% of Suriname is covered by jungle, which not only makes this country one of the richest and most diverse ecosystems in the world, but also one of the most unknown and unexplored. This vast expanse of jungle hides many secrets, including undiscovered places. Due to the dense vegetation and inaccessibility of certain areas, it is believed that there are uncontacted tribes living in the most remote corners of the jungle. These isolated communities have managed to avoid contact with the outside world, allowing them to maintain their traditions and ways of life without the influence of modernity. The uncontacted tribes in Suriname, although little documented, are the result of centuries of isolation and resistance to colonization and exploitation. It is estimated that these groups live in harmony with their environment, depending on the jungle for their livelihood. Suriname's vast jungle, covered by thick vegetation and inhabited by a rich biodiversity, has also fed for centuries the legend of the mythical city of El Dorado. This city, according to legends, was a place where gold flowed in abundance, and its inhabitants were endowed with unparalleled riches. During the colonial era, many European explorers ventured into the jungles of South America, driven by the desire to find this golden city and become rich. The promise of El Dorado became a powerful magnet that attracted adventurers, mercenaries, and conquistadors who ventured into unknown territories, often facing extreme conditions and deadly dangers. Although El Dorado was never found, the legend endured, fueled by accounts from the indigenous communities that inhabited these lands. It was said that the natives performed gold rituals, and that a king of the tribe immersed himself in a lake covered with golden dust, symbolizing the wealth that surrounded his people. The obsession with this lost city not only represented a desire for fortune, but also a reflection of the insatiable European ambition to conquer and exploit the natural riches of the Americas. As the explorers went deeper into the jungle, many of them were lost or suffered serious consequences due to the resistance of the indigenous peoples and the inhospitable conditions of the dense jungle. Whether true or not, and beyond the El Dorado legend, Suriname is, in fact, a country rich in mineral resources, with gold accounting for approximately 70% of its exports. This mining industry has played a crucial role in the country's economy, and although the search for the mythical Golden City was never successful, the exploitation of natural resources has had a significant impact on the wealth and future of this region. This fact, together with the rich biodiversity and the uninhabited areas of the jungle, has led many to consider Suriname as a place of unexplored possibilities, where the past and the legend coexist in an extraordinary way. Considering these resources, reality, history, and beauty, it is important to know that Suriname is one of the most ethnically diverse countries in the world, with a mix of indigenous, African, Indian, Javanese, and European groups. This diversity is reflected in the beauty of its women, who can present a variety of physical characteristics and styles that are attractive to many. Cultural diversity also manifests itself in the way women dress and present themselves, incorporating elements of their respective traditions. Surinamese women are also known for their warmth and ability to build relationships, which can be attractive to those interested in learning about new cultures and forming meaningful connections. Unfortunately, economic hardship and lack of resources have led many women to seek alternatives to improve their living conditions, which in some cases includes seeking foreign partners. In urban areas such as Paramaribo, the capital, the population is generally welcoming and open, which facilitates interaction with tourists, a need for connection and integration that is surely all the more necessary considering the legacy of slavery in the history of this country. Fortunately, resistance to oppression by the original inhabitants of Suriname gave rise to the Maroons, communities formed by escaped slaves who managed to settle in the interior of the country, where they developed their own culture and traditions. The term Maroon refers to those slaves who escaped from the plantations and joined together to form free communities in remote areas, mainly in the jungle. These groups not only resisted oppression, but also developed a rich cultural heritage combining diverse elements, such as African, Indigenous, and European. The Maroons have thus kept their traditions alive over the centuries, allowing them to preserve their identity and autonomy in a context of colonization and exploitation. The restrictions in places like the village of Dome are an example of how Maroon communities have preserved their identity in a world that has tried to erase their roots, a testimony to the struggle and resistance of African Maroons who, throughout their history, have kept their traditions alive and have set limits on the entry of outsiders. These historical experiences have much to do with the traditions and festivities in the country, starting with the Kati Koti Festival, one of the most important in Suriname, whose name means the chains are broken. The Kati Koti Festival honors the abolition of slavery in the Dutch colonies in 1863 with dances, typical food, and music. Through Kati Koti, Surinamese not only celebrate their freedom, but also reflect on their shared history and the importance of keeping their cultural traditions alive. This festival is celebrated on July 1st in Suriname's capital, Paramaribo, and in other cities throughout the country. But probably the most explosive, colorful, and passion-filled festivities in Suriname are its mythical carnivals, so vibrant and lively that they could well compete in energy and vitality with the legendary carnivals of Brazil. Each carnival in Suriname has its own unique essence and style, but all share an exuberance that attracts both locals and visitors from far and wide. These carnivals are not only an expression of joy and freedom, but also reflect the rich cultural mix of Suriname. One of the most distinctive carnivals is the Pagara Carnival, held in the capital, Paramaribo, which is noted for its spectacular explosions of firecrackers, known as pagaras. This festival takes place between December 31st and January 1st, and the long bursts of the pagaras represent a farewell to the old year and a ritual to chase away evil spirits while opening the door to good fortune. The energy felt in the streets is unmatched, with live music, dances, and an atmosphere full of color and enthusiasm. The constant sound of firecrackers fills the air, creating a unique experience that blends spirituality and celebration. Another great carnival is the Paramaribo Carnival, which takes place in February and shares the essence of the great South American carnivals. This carnival is characterized by parades full of life, music, and elaborate costumes, in which the costumes, mostly skimpy and sensual, highlight the creativity and freedom of expression of those who wear them. The streets are filled with energy, with dancers displaying rhythms influenced by African, Indian, and European cultures, and an atmosphere full of sensuality and debauchery that invites visitors to let themselves be carried away by the party. Another fascinating party in Suriname is the Avant-Vierdaagse, a cultural walk that takes place in April and marks the carnival in a different way. For 4 days, participants walk long distances while parading in traditional costumes and dancing to the music of the various cultures that make up Suriname. Although less riotous than other carnivals, this event is a showcase of the country's cultural unity and diversity, where Indigenous, African, Asian, and European heritage intertwine as in few other places in the world. Suriname is a country full of unique natural and cultural destinations that every tourist should visit, starting with its natural wonders, such as the Central Suriname Nature Reserve, one of the most beautiful and impressive places in the country, declared a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. This vast reserve protects one of the most extensive and unspoiled areas of tropical rainforest in the world, with an incredible biodiversity among mountains, waterfalls, and rushing rivers. The reserve is a paradise for nature lovers, where species such as jaguars, monkeys, and exotic birds can be spotted in a completely natural environment. Another natural destination that enchants everyone who discovers this country is the Brownsburg Natural Park, an ideal place for hiking, with panoramic views that immerse you in a world full of green from the top of its hills, and with several waterfalls that can be reached after a tour of tropical trails. This park is perfect to enjoy a day of adventures in the middle of nature. After these incredible natural landscapes, Paramaribo, the capital of the country, offers a cultural and architectural experience that cannot be overlooked. This city is a colonial jewel and has also been recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Its historic center is full of Dutch wooden architecture, which creates a unique and enchanting charm. Strolling through its streets allows you to discover some of the most emblematic buildings of the colonial era, including Fort Zeelandia, a 17th century fort with a lot of history, which today is a space dedicated to culture and knowledge about Suriname's past. Another must-see site is the Basilica of St. Peter and St. Paul, a majestic church built entirely of wood and one of the tallest structures of its kind in the Western Hemisphere. Its design and size impress both those seeking to learn about the country's history and those interested in colonial art and architecture. Although few know the enigmatic church that inspires the fascinating story behind one of the most extraordinary events that have led this country to gain notoriety, the church of the series Narco Saints, which has become one of the most amazing productions of the world's leading streaming platform. A Korean church located in the heart of Paramaribo, called Chuingchin Church, which hides a good part of the striking and mysterious events narrated in the famous series, which have to do with a fairly recent true story. This church, although little known among locals, has gained notoriety due to a series that tells the story of a Korean pastor who used the church to carry out activities related to drug trafficking. The series is inspired by Cho Bong-haeng, a criminal who, between the 1990s and the early 2000s, ran a drug trafficking network in Suriname, working closely with the most dangerous cartels on the planet. His network was remarkable, as he operated in a context of cooperation with big-name criminal groups such as the Medellin cartel, demonstrating how he crossed borders and established connections between criminals from different countries. Cho was accused of using South Korean nationals as mules from South America to Europe, highlighting a dark chapter in the country's recent history. What is most interesting about this true story is that Cho was known for his work as a community and religious leader, which allowed him to gain the trust of the people in his community and create a facade of respectability that hid his criminal activities. The impact of this true story and this series has put Suriname on the map for many viewers who probably had never heard of this remote and unknown country. At this point, we would like to ask you, do you know any real stories similar to the one in the Narco Saints series? Do similar things happen in your country? Would you like to visit Suriname and participate in one of its parties, or what surprised you the most about Suriname? Pause the video and leave us your comment. You know that doing so is the best way to support Uncensored World, so that we keep working every week to bring you interesting content like this. So, thank you. Surely the fact that the country is covered by one of the thickest jungles on the planet, the unknown of it and its diversity of cultures, will help a lot to the supposed Korean priest to grow in his organization, but also its geographical isolation with the rest of the world. Since here, large rivers and jungles separate Suriname from neighboring countries, making its communication similar to that of an island, and forcing that most of the relations must be established by boat or plane. Because of this reality, most of the population lives on the coast, and there are no roads leading south, so you need to travel by plane or boat to access the virgin forests, and it is easier to hide in them or make inaccessible what you want to hide. Another curiosity that few know about Suriname is the phenomenon of its lowlands, an aspect that bears similarities with the Netherlands, where Dutch settlers also faced challenges related to sea level. In Suriname, many areas are below sea level, which led the Dutch to build dikes centuries ago to make them suitable for life and agriculture. Originally, these lands were inhospitable and uninhabitable, but thanks to these ingenious engineering works, they were transformed into productive and habitable areas. Today, despite its rich culture and traditions, Suriname faces serious economic difficulties. The minimum wage in Suriname is among the lowest in the world, forcing its inhabitants to find creative ways to make ends meet. The country's economy is based mainly on fishing, agriculture, and the extraction of natural resources, especially the presence of gold in its territory. Suriname is known for having important gold reserves, which have become a significant attraction for the mining industry. However, despite this wealth, lack of foreign investment and limited infrastructure have hindered the effective exploitation of these resources. Gold mining in Suriname faces numerous challenges, ranging from the need to implement appropriate technologies to the adoption of sustainable practices that safeguard the environment. In addition, poor regulations and corruption have hindered the development of responsible mining. Despite these drawbacks, mining remains a crucial source of income, and many local communities depend on it for their livelihoods. In this context, many women in Suriname play a key role in the economy, occupying various roles including night work of all kinds. Unfortunately, many are forced to accept these precarious working conditions due to limited opportunities and economic pressure. These activities not only allow them to contribute to their families' livelihoods, but also offer them an opportunity to improve their living conditions in an environment where options are limited. Despite all the wonders and curiosities you have known, this country is one of the least visited countries in the world, receiving between 10 and 15,000 tourists annually. This reality is manifested in the limited infrastructure and urban development of the country, which lacks large buildings and has not yet adequately exploited many of its resources. The vast expanse of tropical rainforests that cover the territory, although a paradise for biodiversity, also restrict access and development in the region. Despite the challenges facing Suriname, in recent years there has been population growth and improved health services, which have increased life expectancy. Steps are being taken to exploit the country's immense natural resources, which could bring an economic boost. Something that is already happening in neighboring Guyana, a country that is known in recent years as the Dubai of South America, and about which we made a documentary a few weeks ago that you can see in Uncensored World. However, in Suriname, there is still a long way to go in terms of infrastructure and social development for Suriname to reach its full potential as a nation. As you can see, Suriname is a country hidden in the densest of jungles, with millenary tribes and amazing curiosities, but also with limited infrastructure and few roads connecting with its neighbors, something that also helps it to maintain much of its essence and its mysteries. Despite its location in South America, Suriname maintains closer ties with the Caribbean and participates in various Caribbean organizations. This connection can be seen in the country's star sport, soccer. Suriname's national soccer team competes in CONCACAF, which allows it to participate in a broader and more competitive context. However, many of its outstanding footballers choose to emigrate to Europe in search of better opportunities and living conditions. This trend is particularly noticeable towards the Netherlands, largely due to the historical ties that still exist between Suriname and its former colonial metropolis. This emigration trend is closely related to the current reality of Suriname and its extremely low population density. It is not only limited to the sports scene. Many people in the country decide to leave home due to the lack of future and limited job prospects. The low population density, resulting in an economy with few opportunities, drives many Surinamese to seek a more promising life abroad. That is why this search for opportunities in soccer not only reflects sporting aspirations, but also represents a broader phenomenon of emigration affecting the population of a country that, despite being one of the most biodiverse places and full of coveted resources, forces its inhabitants to seek better living conditions abroad. Before concluding our tour of Suriname, it is essential to know how to maximize this unique experience in this fascinating country. With a combination of rich culture, breathtaking scenery, and warm hospitality, understanding the practical aspects of traveling here can make your visit easier and more enjoyable. Getting to Suriname is relatively simple, as it is served by the Johan Adolf Pengel International Airport, located about 40 kilometers from the capital, Paramaribo. From different countries in South America and the Caribbean, there are regular flights connecting with Suriname, especially from Brazil and the Netherlands. As for entry requirements, citizens of several countries, including most Latin American countries, do not need visas for short stays, which facilitates the arrival in the country. Once in Suriname, getting around the country is quite accessible. In the cities, public transportation includes minibuses and cabs, which are convenient and inexpensive options for getting around. In addition, many rural areas can be explored by boat, which is essential for navigating the rivers and canals that crisscross the country. Suriname is known to be one of the cheapest countries in South America. Living costs are relatively low, making for an inexpensive experience. For example, a coffee can cost less than $1, and a night in a basic hotel can cost between $20 and $40, and dinner for two at a local restaurant can cost between $15 and $30. This affordability makes Suriname an attractive destination for travelers looking to enjoy its natural and cultural riches without spending too much. Apart from all this, Suriname stands out as one of the safest countries in South America, offering tourists a calm and welcoming environment. Although, as in any travel, it is essential to be alert and take precautions, most visitors find that the main urban areas, such as Paramaribo, are safe to explore and enjoy without problems. At Uncensored World, we hope that this tour through the mysteries of fascinating Suriname has been as exciting for you as it has been for us. Thinking about it, and the effort it takes us to make these videos, we would love you to leave us a nice like and your comment. It is the best way you have to help us to continue bringing you the best content every week. If you enjoyed this video, and you are not yet subscribed, do not wait any longer, and do it now by activating the little bell to not miss the fascinating videos we do every week. Videos like this one that you can enjoy now, to know one of the most enigmatic corners of the planet. Do not miss it, and discover the wonders that this place has to offer.